Simon,
All right. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. Good.
In the studio, I see, huh?
I live these days.
Yeah. One of the few places you can still be, right?
Yeah, it's it. It's my life these days. Normally, no. I'm usually before all this COVID stuff. I was never in here really, so
Yeah.
now I'm like permanently in this seat.
Well, there are worse places to be, right?
That's true. Definitely is worse places you could be. Yeah, but that's why. So I ain't complaining. I'm surprised. I'm surrounded by lots of toys, as you can see. So
Yeah, it looks great in there.
yeah, it's my little man cave, or what, like, a working man cave, I think is the correct terminology.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, it's not so much a man cave as it's your lab, right?
That's it. It's my lab. It's my place of work these days. That's where I do
I,
everything.
I got a couple virtual backgrounds. I could join you in the studio right here. See?
Okay. Oh, look at that there, yeah.
Maybe in a record store, but
Nice. Yeah.
maybe I'll just stick to the authentic home studio here.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's good.
Yeah.
But you got a little bit Telecaster up in the back there, I see.
Yeah, good eye. Good eye. It's real far back there, but yeah, that's a telly.
Good, good, good.
Got a
So,
couple other ones over here too, but they're out of view. So thanks so much for joining us, and really interested in hearing your story. Sounds like you got some good ones. So why don't we jump into it? And how'd you get into music?
well, I get into music when I was about 9 or 10. My family's kind of, it's funny because in my whole entire family, I'm the only one that's musical at
Uh-huh.
all.
Uh-huh.
So it's weird. No other member of my family plays a musical instrument, so it's not like it's something that's been kind of handed down through genes or DNA or whatever you want to call it. But my dad is a massive music fan, and
Sure.
there's always music going on in my house, and it was mostly Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Cream, like kind of big,
Yeah. The
70s.
best stuff.
Yeah. Well, it was always there. It was always on. So music was. I just grew up around it. And then it wasn't really until I said I was about 9 or 10, and then my dad had bought a guitar for himself,
Hmm.
but he couldn't play it because years ago when he was a kid, he tore all the tendons in his wrist. So it
Yikes.
was very difficult for him.
Yeah.
So anyway, the guitar was lying around the house, and
Hmm.
I when he went to work, I used to sneak in and just do what any 9-year-old kid does with a guitar, take the
Yeah.
lights out of it, and bash chords. And it was, I kind of really liked it. And then I discovered there was a little book, like a little tuition book, chord book, whatever, and I had simple things like, you know D chord, A chord, and little tunes. I think the first thing was like Green Sleeves or something like that, something
Huh.
silly, single note thing. So I started learning that. But then my dad came in one day and caught me. To my
Hmm.
surprise, I was horrified. I was like, "What's? I'm in trouble, man. Sorry
Yeah.
for playing guitar." And he's like,
Uh-huh.
but he's seen I could play, and he's like, "Okay, all right." So he encouraged me then to practice and practice, and so he did. So he did. I remember he made me practice for 20 minutes one day, and I cried. I think for 20 minutes. A lot of
uh,
practice minutes. So that's kind of how I got started, and ever since that I was kind of just hooked. Went from practicing, you know, crying whilst practicing 20 minutes a day till practicing 8, 9 hours a day.
uh-huh. Wow.
And that was just on the guitar.
Yeah.
The vocal thing I never got into until later on.
Hmm.
10 years later or something. So, um, but yeah, that's how I got started. It's all very yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's funny how, it's funny the way human psychology works. You're sneaking in to use the guitar, which you're not supposed to use, and then when your dad tells you you have to use it, you're crying about it.
Yeah, like, thing. The kids will do the opposite of what your parents tell you to do.
Exactly. But that's, I mean, There's a lot worse things to be caught doing by your parents than playing guitar. You know, at least you were doing something productive, and that's good that he saw that and encouraged it.
Yeah, it was, I was very lucky. My mom and dad were very good that way. They seemed, and plus I was kind of very fast at learning things anyway. So after a year or two, I was playing stuff by like Don Gillan and guys like that. So I was pretty quick.
Yeah, playing Van Halen.
Yeah, I think they kind of I had a bit of natural ability, so they pushed
Mm,
where some parents wouldn't, especially living in Ireland. Because
mm,
music, especially in that rock thing or whatever, in Ireland, that doesn't really have a rock scene, and so
mm.
it would be more a case of and I know some people still to this day would say to me, "So when are you getting a real job?" And I'm like, "Okay, I have been doing it for 22 years, so but
Yeah, I'm doing
yeah,
all right, mate.
so, yeah, I'm very lucky."
Yeah, well, next time just say, I don't think ever. I think I'm okay with my fake job.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I think the UK government are trying to get all musicians now to retrain or whatever. But I'm not getting into that. I don't know.
Yeah, so growing up in Ireland, and so there's not much of a rock scene. So you start playing a little bit, and how did you make it work? Were you playing little? Did you start by putting a band together with some friends from school? Were you did you get some little gigs, some house parties, or what were some of the first things you did?
Basically, a lot of, as I said, because there was not much rock thing going on or musicians going on in where I came from. So I didn't really have a school band or anything. I was always doing everything on my own. And
Hmm.
it started with my dad. He brought me to a few, local gigs that had like rock cover bands.
Hmm.
Very. Um, these guys were all older, and I was like 14 or something at the
Hmm.
time. So and I used to get up and maybe play one or two songs, and I used to be like the novelty highlight kid getting up and playing.
Oh, that's cool.
But doing that, and then obviously I progressed on the guitar, and then I started doing lots of TV shows.
Hmm.
When I was 13 or 14, I
Wow.
lost count of how many I've done years, and then I started to do clinics for Marshall amps.
Hmm.
When I was about 14 or 15. And
Were those like promo videos, content, or was that like just teaching classes for them, or what?
no, this was old school as you get. It was like you would have they would have a demonstration evening where they would invite a lot of people to it's like a gig, only
Right.
it's for martial arts, or they have a big trade show like in LA. They have the NAM show, a little bit like that, and they would get me along to
Got it. Sure.
just play songs. That's it, really. So
Sure.
I
And
was
you said TV shows. Was that like the 14-year-old kid who can play guitar really well on like the local news kind of TV show, or was it different kinds of TV shows?
it was kind of like chat shows
Hmm.
all the time. Um, they would get me on, quick interview. You know, Probably got about 2 words out of me back then because I was 14 and didn't say anything.
Right.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
I play the guitar, didn't ask me to speak. But so yeah, it was mostly chat shows, and then yeah, that was really lots of stuff like that. And then when I was 15, I won UK Guitarist of the Year. So
Wow.
15. So it's just kind of all. But it's funny. I didn't do it the way a lot of kids do it these days, as you said, get into band, school mates.
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't. I was always on my own. You know,
Yeah.
go
That's interesting for like a rock guitarist. You know what I mean? Usually they're just itching to get into a band. You know?
yeah, it was on like the first band I actually joined and played for was a band called Sweet Savage, which were a heavy rock band, and they were
Hmm.
kind of big at the time. They had their previous guitar player had just left. It was a guy called Vivian Campbell who plays for Def Leppard and White Snake and various other people. But
Yeah.
I joined these guys and I played albums, did some tours with those guys, and then and this is why I was 16 still, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I
Not
was kind
bad.
of I was through into the kind of professional scene straight away,
Hmm.
and and I just went on to do various tours with other people as well after that. So
Yeah, I wonder, if just focusing by yourself actually may have been a benefit to you. You know, I mean, obviously you're doing something right. You're winning best guitar awards and getting on talk shows and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I think so. I think it gave me more discipline to to practice and learn as a guitarist. As I said, I practiced like when I was a kid. Like I didn't have a teenage life basically like most kids these days have. I sat in my room and played guitar for 8 9 hours a day, 7 days a week for years.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, 9 hours a day, that'll do it.
yeah, it does. And people always ask me how do you get to be good, and I go, well, you got 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you, it's dedication. The thing is, when you're playing an instrument, or you fall in love with an instrument, it's just like it's all you want to do anyway. It's like a sportsman, playing football. All you want to do is play football all day,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. That's just what it is. It's your calling card, or you want to call it. Guitar and music for me is just that's what I do. I don't know how to do anything else.
Right. So you said your dad forced you to play for 20 minutes and then eventually got to 9 hours. Was that also your parents' influence? Was that them saying if you want to do this, you got to do it seriously and you have to play this long every day, or was that you saying I want to do this because I love it?
It was me saying I wanted to do it. That
Okay.
was as I said, my mom and dad were very good. They initially pushed me to do 20 minutes,
Mm,
and but after that, the more and more I played, the more and more I wanted to play.
right.
So I remember coming home from school, I did my homework or whatever it was as fast as I possibly could, so I could start playing guitar.
Yeah.
I wasn't interested in running out. The odd time I would go out and play with friends and stuff like that, but it was just just kind of it was me. It's all I wanted to do. But I wasn't pushed into doing anything. You know, uh,
And so when you're getting in these on these shows, did you have a manager? Were your parents reaching out to people? How were they finding out about you to get you on these talk shows?
it was really through my dad mostly at the start.
Mm,
My dad
hmm.
just made contacted people, and because I was a minor, so they were with me and all that. So I didn't really have a manager. I only really got a manager when I was in my late 20s.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
No, the thing is, a manager is great, but a lot of things a manager does, you can do yourself.
Sure.
Generally a management company, well, it depends on the management company. If it's a big management company, if they can bring a lot to the table, great. But a lot of managers, all they do is liaise with the artist and the record company.
Right. Right.
Fortunately enough, my last record company and my new record company, I got on like a house on fire with the owners. So I'm just like, I don't really need someone in between. So, but yeah, it's no manager. But so I guess you could say my dad was manager and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That must be an Irish expression. Got on like a house on fire,
Yeah, I know, and I.
huh?
It's funny. Later on in life, when I was about in my 20s, I actually was in a house fire. I was like,
Yeah, I wonder where that comes from, but that's a good one. I'll have to look into that. I love hearing like UK slang. It's always a Euro trip. I was hanging out with a couple Scots one time, and I was having fun picking up on all their slang.
yeah.
But so 16-year-old kid, and you start doing these start touring with some pretty cool people. How was that? Were you starting to see some of the rock and roll lifestyle seep into there a little bit? Was some of that fun starting to happen, or did they keep you kind of away from some of that stuff since you were a kid?
No, I was threw straight in the deep end,
Uh-huh.
basically.
Uh-huh.
So, so to be honest, I only really started seeing the rock and roll side of it when I was let loose on my own, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Really, when I joined Andrew Strong. Andrew Strong was a singer from a movie called The Commitments, which was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like famous movie in Hollywood and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it was this guy's a singer, a phenomenal singer. But I toured the world with him for long years. So, and I'm not going to deny it. There was a lot of partying and a lot of wild things going on. So,
Yeah,
it did see the rock and roll lifestyle.
yeah,
It was nowhere near as bad as like Motley Crue or
sure. Well, who's as bad as Motley Crue? You know, that's a
no,
high bar to set.
yeah, that was just carnage. It
Yeah.
was. I know because I play now with guys, with Don Airey. He played keyboards with Ozzy Osbourne, and so he knows. He told me all the stories. I'm going.
Yeah,
Oh.
they toured with Ozzy for a while. Yeah.
So I remember Don just telling me he got on the Motley Crue tour bus and he says it was just carnage.
Yeah.
What do I say about that? I'm not allowed to say
Yeah.
carnage, but
Yeah.
yeah. So the rock and roll thing was great. I was touring all over the world. Just this 20 in my 20s. Actually, I think I was a bit younger. I was just 18, maybe 18, 19. I can't remember now. But just touring, playing all different countries around the place, and just gigs to thousands of people, and just partying. I remember at one stage being away for 6 weeks, and I think we were coming home the following week, and I was going, I don't want to go home. It was just so much fun, and you understand why you want to. I wanted people want to stay on the road, and that's why musicians, they basically tour until they die because it's what they love doing.
Yeah.
And playing music and getting to have fun. There's no better lifestyle than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for some people they love it, and wouldn't rather be doing anything else. I think some people like just hanging out at home, or like like a simpler life. But yeah,
Yeah,
some people are Rolling Stones.
everybody has their own thing, and being a musician is an acquired taste. But some people take to it really well, and some people don't. The other side of touring and stuff is it is hard. It's fun. The fun parts, override the hard parts. The thing
Right.
when you're touring, a big thing, a big lesson you gotta learn, and you gotta be able to deal with this pretty quickly is the lack of sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which, I was reading a bio of yours, and it said, you have many tour stories, but once you played 30 shows in 35 days. Speaking of no sleep, do you recall that story? Do you want to tell us about that one?
Yeah, that was quite recent actually. It was like only a few years ago. I did about it was a European tour, and basically, yeah, it was literally. I think we had out of 7 days a week, it was 6 gigs on one day off, and but the
Yeah.
one day was traveling, and I was just like that back to back.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Towards the end of that tour, that there was only three of us in the band, but we were just dead.
Yeah. I bet. Yeah.
No, we did. No, we obviously in the gig we put we gave everything we could, but
Sure.
it was just the last week or two it just got very very hard because people don't understand. It's like I remember doing some gigs, well weeks of gigs where basically we do the gig, we wouldn't get back to the hotel till maybe 2 a.m. in the morning. Then you're up at 5. Get on the bus and you're driving for another 8 9 hours, do another gig, same thing. So you're getting roughly 3 4 hours sleep a night, and
Yeah.
then on. And it's all in different levels though. The higher up, you're playing big arenas, the bigger venues. You're that more higher up the ladder as they call it.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier because you pick and choose. You don't have to gig every night. And if you're
Right.
flying, it's like if you're in Germany and you have one side of it one night, and then you go to the other side of the other next night. They would go, oh, we'll just take that day, next day off, go to it. Well, when you're a smaller artist doing your own thing and playing in more smaller clubs and things like that, it's all about money.
Right. Right.
Keep it financially afloat. But sometimes you just gotta do it. You just gotta play. Like it doesn't bother me. Sometimes I would rather gig every night and be wrecked than just have days off. Because sometimes in those days off, you're just bored. just
Yeah.
hanging around,
Yeah.
just waiting for the next, you know.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it sometimes can be tough, and sleep. The lack of sleep is the thing you just got to get used to. Once you get used to that, everything else is beautiful.
Yeah. So you've had some, great success musically. Was listening to your old album the other day, but you just dropped an EP a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, well, it's actually there's been a few singles off the EP
Hmm.
come out already. The actual the main track of the EP, Trouble, comes out on Friday. Whatever date that is, this Friday or
Yeah. Yeah,
so
you're right, because there's only 3 tracks on it, so it's more of a single than an EP.
yeah, so yeah, well, it's I haven't released an album in 8 years. I've just been I've had 2 kids in that period
Mhm.
of time. So, I've just been doing other things and just touring with other artists
Yeah.
and Ian Gillan and Don Airey. That took up a lot of time too. So, uh, but yeah, no, that I decided, I changed record company. It's a bigger label. So and they want to push stuff out. So I had a load of songs written and ready to go. So it was just a matter of recording them. So we decided, yeah, we'll put out some EPs and stuff. The album was supposed to be out this year, but COVID hit, so
Sure, sure.
we decided to put out an album at this point in time because put an album out. Generally, the standard rule of thumb is now where you put an album out, you go tour it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You put an album out, it's like, oh,
Yeah. Well, we're talking to people every day, multiple artists every day, and same story, so.
yeah. So we had the EPs there done, and
Mhm.
we said, well, let's just release them. So because each EP has a track from the album anyway, like this
Uh-huh.
track, like Friday Trouble, it's actually on the album. It's be out next year. So it's just more of like keeping. The thing is with today and the modern music industry, it's about keeping your name in the frame because
Sure.
there's so much out there. There's so much music out there. There's so many other things apart from music to take up people's mental space.
Yeah.
So it's just about keeping going,
Yeah.
keeping going. That's really what it's about. Um, so yeah, I'm proud of the EPs. They're different. Because each EP has one original song and
Hmm.
2 covers, and then there's one live song. So there's 4 tracks on each EP. So basically, yeah, there's the original, and then there's 2 covers, and then there's a live one. The live one was basically done in a studio. Um, we were in the middle of, I think it was that 30-day tour or 30-day tour we were doing.
Hmm.
We were in Germany somewhere, and the record company says, "Sure, why don't we come in for? I think we had 2 days or something off." So why don't we
Right.
go to the studio and just play your set? We'll just record it. So that's
Yeah.
what we did. And then recorded. I played it. Sang it. No overdubs, no nothing. That was it.
Mm.
So it's like a little bonus thing to have. So we did that. But yeah, it was challenging doing the covers. Some songs because I'm of the opinion if I'm going to do a cover of somebody's song, I want to do it justice because
Yeah.
too many people doing covers out there, and they're when you listen to the original and listen to the new one or the cover, it's like,
Yeah. You got to do something differently, or do it justice at least. Otherwise, what's the point?
exactly, because you think about it, right? Whoever's written that song or played that song, recorded that song originally, has put their heart and soul into that, and it wouldn't be fair to me or to them if I recorded it and just did that'll do, stick anything down.
Sure. Plus, you set yourself up to be, the lesser of the comparisons. If you don't do something different, or do something interesting at least.
Yeah, well, that's what I try to do. I try to always put my own little spin on things, like we
Hmm.
did on this EP. There was "Kids Want to Rock" the Brian Adams song, and I decided, okay. When I first listened to it, I was like, okay. First thing came to my mind was Foo Fighters. Right?
Hmm.
The old ba-da, ba-da-da, ba-da-da, ba-da.
Yeah. Love that song.
And then I started playing that sort of vibe over it. I don't know, just ideas started coming to mind, like Black Sabbath. I was like,
Yeah.
a few things like Paranoid. So it
Uh-huh.
all spiral into this song. I went, okay, this is working. Let's do it. Because some of the covers we tried, I played with it a bit and went, nah, it's not
Yeah.
working.
Hmm.
It's not. I'm not getting that vibe, that inspiration kicking in.
Yeah. Well, those are some great inspirations to draw from. Some Foo
Yeah.
Fighters and Paranoid, some of the best.
Yep, they are indeed. They are. So
And I think that that Foo Fighters album, what's the name? All My Life is the. I think that's the. Is that the song you were drawn for?
yeah,
Did
yeah,
it all my life? I've been searching. Yeah, that's. I think that's one of my favorite Foo Fighters albums, if not my favorite.
yeah. It's pretty spectacular, that one. So it is. So.
So I think I jumped a little ahead, but you were playing these gigs when you were 16 all the way into your early 20s. Was it seems like from the way you talk about it, the transition from just kind of being a kid to doing this for a living seemed pretty fluid, maybe because of your talent. Do you feel like that was the case? Do you feel like, hey, I was just doing these shows and then I started playing with some bands and I was never too worried about it, getting a real job, because it seemed like you kind of had some momentum from the beginning. Was that the case?
Pretty much so. As I said, I was because I've been thrown into it since I was, when I was a kid, like 12 or 13, doing lots of TV shows and stuff, and everything just kind of just seemed to fall into place. So, the thought of going to get a job, like I worked in a music store when I was a kid, but
Yeah.
that's not a job. That's still
Right. Sure.
oh, it is
Sure.
sitting on the bar all day in a music store.
Right.
So, uh, but yeah, it was pretty easy for me just to. It was like it was just after the age of about 10. It was like my life was planned out. That's it. I'm going to be a musician. That's all I wanted to be. And
Yeah.
so my parents really encouraged me to do that. So it's and I've just been lucky enough, to be honest. That I've got where I am. Obviously everybody says they can always do better, or like I always say, the big one for me is I wish I was born 10 years earlier. Then I would have grew up in that '80s rock thing, and that would, because that would be because I could play like that. So
Sure. Yeah. You're a shredder.
so, but it is what it is. Life is life, and the path that I've taken has just led me to where I am right now. So, but everything's been relatively easy. You know, uh, I've just I think when you have a talent,
Hmm.
and you're thrown into a situation, whether it's a rock band or a soul band, you have talent, you can pretty much get to grips with it pretty quickly. Because I honestly do not remember any situations where I went, that was hard or
Hmm.
cope with, mentally or anything. It was pretty easy. So, um, yeah, it was just, yeah, transition wise, it was just pretty easy for me. I just jumped from one thing to the other, but it just jumped straight in. Like, yeah, because I went from Sweet Savage, which were a heavy metal band, to
Hmm.
Army Strong, which was a soul R&B band.
Yeah.
So how do you go from being the number one in the band, soul guitar, shred stuff, to okay, you're part of a nine-piece band. You just sit in the background and play cheap.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I thought this was great. I'm single and I get paid to do this.
Uh-huh.
Okay, party. But it was also a learning curve for me musically, because obviously it's a different style of music, different way of playing. So it's all different things like chords and techniques. So I had to, get my head around as well. But
Do you
said,
think that maybe because I know near the beginning you said there might have been some hesitation because you're growing up in Ireland and there's not much of a scene there. But do you think that that also may have been somewhat of an advantage because maybe you are a larger fish in a smaller pond?
well, the thing is that the advantage of it is for me is like still to this day I don't do anything in Ireland. I live here,
Hmm.
but I cannot tell you the last time I did a gig here. It was years ago. You know,
Ah, okay.
all my work or everything I do is me getting on a plane and flying somewhere.
Uh-huh.
So that's the advantage I've had from the situation here, because I see a lot of musicians here and they have a lot of talent
Hmm.
initially,
Hmm.
but they get drawn into the trap of just playing cover gigs and stuff, and they start out at a level musicianship, the technique and theory and all is great. They're really enthusiastic, but it becomes like a job then, and their technique just gradually goes like that, and it's just money and it's safe. So that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're in the big bad world, it's like, no, it's nothing really to do with money.
Mm-hmm.
Important, yeah, but it's not. It's about how good you are.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I find like England, London is like just what it's a 20-mile stretch of water between here and London or in
Mm-hmm.
England.
Yeah,
It's a different mentality completely over there. In England, it's like you're a guitarist and you're in a gig. You always have to remember this one thing: there's somebody standing about 2 centimeters behind you, waiting to get into your gig.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And they're just as good, or if not better. But they're
right.
just so it's like you always have to be on top of your game, and 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 that's the thing that annoys me with some musicians, because I see them and I go, they're incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Please get out of Ireland, move on.
Right, right.
The thing is, if you look at all the great musicians that come out of Ireland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gary Moore, great guitar player,
Mm-hmm.
years ago, moved well, unfortunately no longer with us, but he moved to London when he was a kid. Rory Gallagher didn't tour in Ireland, he toured all around Europe.
Yeah,
And Lizzie, the same. U2, the
yeah.
same. All the
Mm-hmm.
big bands who made it big got out of here. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Ireland, but there's a certain mentality about it,
Sure.
which I think it's
There's,
just laid back or something. And
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, not everywhere is an entertainment hub, and so if you want to, like you said, the competition sharpens your skills. So,
but that's the thing. The other thing is, Ireland is a big music place, but it's mostly
Mm-hmm.
Irish traditional music or Irish country music. For
Mm-hmm.
rock, not really a scene for me for guitar or rock music, so that's why anything like that, better just to get out of it.
Right, right.
Some people may disagree, but whatever.
Yeah. No, that's yeah. Just because a place isn't good for a certain type of business doesn't mean that you don't love it. But Simon, it's been awesome meeting you. I know we're taking up we're going a little bit over your time here, so I'm gonna ask you. We like to wrap up the interviews by asking if you had one piece of advice to give to aspiring artists, what would it be?
Never give up. Basically, just keep going and uh, just always move with the times. Whatever's happening, move with it. I've learned in years that never try to fight the industry. The industry, it's always going to be 10 times bigger than what you are. So just keep going. Go with whatever's out there. Like we can all moan about Spotify and Apple Music. And musicians don't get paid, but we still need it. We still need Spotify. But it's just never give up, because you just never know. Like, I know artists who don't make it and are on the verge of giving up, and then bang, something happens, and it's like, oh, okay. Last week I was just about getting a job in my local supermarket, but okay, now I'm playing 1,000 people. So
Yeah.
just never get up and just keep practicing, keep doing music. That's what it's all about. If you feel it's in your heart, just keep doing it.
Bringing it backwards.